As part of We the People, celebrating 250 years, here's This Day in History.
Welcome back. As we count down to America's 250th birthday this summer, we're sharing our We the People series.
Yeah, it's about the people, places, and things of the past that have shaped our country into what it is today. Here's Charlie Shortino with This Day in History.
Hello again. On this day, June 7th in 1979, Texas passed a bill to become the first state in the United States to make Juneteenth an official state holiday. Juneteenth is the annual celebration of the Emancipation Proclamation. President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation officially freed the slaves on New Year's Day of 1863, but the order only applied to territories currently held by the Confederacy. Southerners did not recognize Lincoln's authority, and many slave owners withheld the news from enslaved people. The wait was especially long in Texas, where the news did not arrive until 2 months after Robert E. Lee's surrender on June 19th in 1865. Union General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, and proclaimed the news to people who were enslaved. The day instantly became an important one to the African-American citizens of Texas, who held annual celebrations and even made pilgrimage to Galveston each Juneteenth. That's This Day in History for June 7th. For We the People, I'm Charlie Shortino.